In the wonderful Christian classic, The Way of a Pilgrim, which is written in Tsarist Russia, the pilgrim is contemplatively awakened. And in the aftermath of this awakening, he travels along the highways and byways looking for a spiritual teacher. He's looking for somebody who will guide him in the fulfillment of this desire that's been awakened within him. And at a certain point in the story, he meets a teacher who says to him, "Thank God, my brother, for revealing to you this unappeasable desire." Another seminal image of this in the Christian traditions, this yearning or this desire, which is so germane to Merton's path, is found throughout the writings of St. John of the Cross. In one of his poems, St. John of the Cross poetically speaks of Jesus as a hart, a small deer. And he says this hart follows you around, and just when you least expect it, rushes out and wounds your heart with love, and then dashes off, leaving you with this love wound. So you're limping along the hallways and up and down the streets with this love wound. And he says the one who wounded you with love keeps following you around, and when you're least expecting it, rushes out and wounds you again with love. And the one who's wounding you with love knows where the most sore place of the love wound is, and goes to the most sore place of the love wound and makes the wound deeper. Finally, St. John of the Cross says, the person cries out, "It is not fair that you do not carry off this heart that you have stolen." This is so characteristic of the path that lies ahead. It's the willingness to endure unappeasable desire. It's the willingness to go about with unconsummated longings, knowing that we dare not give in to the temptation to close the circle in the finite, because although it may momentarily relieve us of the longings, in that very process we betray what we know our heart longs for. By allowing our yearnings to dissipate upon attaining something, obtaining the career, obtaining the relationship, attaining the reputation, attaining whatever, none of these things individually, nor all of them taken collectively, can, in being realized, fulfill our hearts. Because in the very finiteness of these things, they are not simply less, but infinitely less than what alone will do. How is it possible to live a more contemplative way of life in the midst of today's world? To ask the question from deep inside, out of some inarticulate longing for some unimaginable union, is to taste in the very asking the essence of the way. It isn't as if we keep going along desiring and aching and longing to have the longing appeased. Rather, it gets worse and worse. It gets deeper and deeper. It all starts unraveling, and we realize there's going to be nothing to fix this for us. And in the very degree to which we accept and embrace the mystery of that, we discover unexpectedly the fulfillment of our hearts. There is a flip side to all of this we also need to be aware of, and that is the sadness that arises in the half-hearted nature of our longings. Oh, only if we could long so like this. What's so disturbing is how easily we're diverted from the longing. And all it takes is a tray of brownies in a television show. All it takes is a commercial about some car, and one would never guess that we had been awakened. And we all do this. There's a certain precariousness to our hearts, and off we go into this, and off we go into that. This is our challenge, really, and this is our path. It's the path of honoring the yearning within our heart. And also, if we sense a lack of yearning, it's the task of reverencing the poverty of our yearning. When we speak of this yearning, and one sees it in certain schools of contemplative traditions, sometimes it can create this feeling that's obviously not talking about us. You know, there's certain lofty souls who go around burning like this for God. But I think if we recalibrate our awareness to a fine enough scale, we begin to realize that we do care. And what discloses to us that we do care is that each time we become aware of how little we care, it saddens us. That is, we wish we'd care more. And the wish that we care more is the caring. It's a matter of reverencing the poverty of our yearning. Maybe it burns like a little flame, like the wind almost blows it out, or it does keep blowing it out over and over again. It gets relit and it gets getting blown out. But maybe this is a very deep path to be humbled in the acknowledgement of the poverty of one's yearnings, and then with great devotion and great fidelity to keep tenderly shielding the frailty of our yearnings, to not do violence to it or walk past it or to give up on ourselves because our yearnings aren't great yearnings, but rather to gaze deeply into the true greatness of little yearnings. Because the incredible thing about love is that love sees that there's no such thing as a little thing. Merton once said, with God, a little sincerity goes a long, long way. A lot of the path is learning to be sincere about ourselves. And I think sometimes we're afraid to admit how sincere we are because we're afraid that we'll be disappointed if our heart's desire is not fulfilled. And sometimes we pretend that we don't care as deeply as we do. And at other times, the caring is in there, but our access to it is impoverished. And so the path is learning a kind of quiet, childlike fidelity to the fragility of the yearning as a path that has great integrity to it and a sense of great mystery. There was a convent of sisters that I used to go to each summer to give a retreat, and there was a sister there who lived in the community, and she was an elderly sister who tended the rose garden there. And when I would go there, she'd always be out in the rose garden, in this beautifully tended garden, and each rose bush had a little plaque under it saying what kind of rose it was. And she would cut roses and bring them in and set them throughout the corridors and the chapels and so on. And one year I went there to give the retreat, and during the year she had died. Everybody missed her. And I went out and I sat in the rose garden for a while and had some sense of how great little things are and how great it is to be faithful to a little thing. It's not measurable. And a lot of the contemplative path has to do with being aware of and sensitive to and faithful to things like this.